Twice I've had a rant and forgotten to turn the recorder on. Me all over, really. I'd rather say it out loud, directly in public, standing on my hind legs. This electronic filter is extremely unsafe. You see how long people stretch a crisis? I've heard the same bloody stories, days and days and days and bloody days, and has anything been done about it? No. There. America enables the shithole of an administration that it's got. It enables it. It doesn't say, you're insane, get out, we've got to fix this somehow, and have a skeleton standby crew, a non-party crew who know how it's supposed to work, put a freeze on everything that the Biden administration has done, close the country down for a while, but unlock it inside, and let people start fixing the mess that the present administration has done. It's not doing enough. It's too suspicious. They're too selective about what they like to complain about. Whether it's Afghanistan, the border, bloody fucking blah. Whoever is complaining about the world circumstance. Locally, all those people who've got facial presence, talking heads. Could I see their garden? They've all got opinions. Could I see their garden? Do they have one? Or are they just box heads? If they're box heads, then they're speaking for vested interest. They have no independent status. They can't go home and say fuck it unless they've got a wage that pays the mortgage and keeps their kids in school. They'd lose everything if they started knocking the sides of the boxes down. They're prepared to just watch and criticise what's happening in Victoria. They're prepared to watch it because it's television. It's the equivalent of television, even if it's not television. It's what's wrong with reportage these days. How can we exploit controversy, but we don't actually help fix it? The media has no product. It's a parasite. And no matter how lovely all those celebrities seem, they enable the parasite to abuse us by shoving recycled images over and over again. And in the middle of a broadcast talking about Afghanistan or sad occasions, they're laughing and joking and and oh, you know, personal flattery, the mutual ego massaging and all the rest. The coffee table pundits, you know. Who are you kidding? I used to make boomerangs, you know. Made 20,000 of them with my bare hands. complaint. You threw it at Rosilly Cliffs and it smashed. I sent him one, replaced it. It's the kind of man I am. With extra instructions on the instructions not to throw them at a cliff, because they might not come back. 20,000 boomerangs. I wonder how many boomerangs those pink types in the Australian media have ever made. Have you noticed how few Aboriginal or mixed Euro-Aboriginal types there are in Sky Australia TV news? Have you noticed? Have you noticed how few Aboriginal Australians appear in, say, Sea Patrol? Suspicious, isn't it? Oh, they're not a racist country. They're still espousing in the government's offices Victorian values. Victorian values are institutionally racist. And if you want to stay in work, you observe the protocols and conventions enshrined within those institutional guidelines. And the allowances that you have been given in your office, it's up to you. They are guidelines. So if you're an inhumane, passive-aggressive, you do what the Prime Minister of Victoria is doing and treating Australians like they were convicts. As yet they haven't learned their lesson. You still wave the bloody Union Jack, don't you? Well, you asked for it. You enable it. You give it fire, you give it air. You give it a place to stand. You wash it down so it looks clean. You give it space to infect everybody to conform to the wrong idea. And that's what the media does to the people's minds. Whilst they're watching you, media types, shit is happening, which they'll only hear about tomorrow, if they're lucky, from you media types, so nobody's stopping it. Everything you see on the media, whether it's alternative or mainstream, is the past. Which one of those clever monkeys is actually stopping it from happening before it breaks news? None. They'll dip the bread and say nothing in respect of their own position. Self-flattering idiots. I've been hospitalised 6 times for speaking the truth. Bad policing. No backup. No internet. No. I don't use a mobile anything apart from mobile flute. You know, I don't play anything. I play flute. I gave up games like chess and so on. Competitive. I don't do competitive. And once the sperm hit the egg, I stopped competing. I won. That's the male part of me. I don't suppose many think that way. I don't see any need to compete. They either like what I do and what I make and what I am from a respectable distance, let's say. Or they ignore, or they can't even bloody see me even if they looked. I don't force anyone to like me. I wouldn't want to be part of a too popular cult, you know, like the Democrat Party. You have to stop being yourself and you'd have to stop being true. You see, Bernie Sanders, what's his name? See how he turned? Keep money out of politics, suddenly he's got a $600,000 house. One of 3 now. Keep politics out of money, I say. We need saints, not just talk about it, not just bullshitters, not just promissory notes. Hillary Clinton was seen wearing a black outfit just recently with a page boy holding a train behind her, all dressed up. In a fashion statement that looked more appropriate to the time of a man called Harry Morgan, Captain Morgan of the rum fame, let's say that. The first governor of Jamaica. It occurred to me that that's exactly what the Democrat Party is about. Since before the War of Independence. And instead of sending the royalties to the original investors home, they stuffed them in their pockets and played the part of Becky. It's not Caucasian or European or this and that, you know, or white, really. Uncivilized people call themselves by a colour. My father came from India, was an extremely brown man. So my granny was really brown. She had a big, broad Buddha nose and long earlobes. Never once did I hear them refer in my youth to us as any kind of colour. It was just by our name. These transgender people, these gender freaks. Freaks. Is that the most important subject in the whole world? Strikes me they got mental problems. They should get straightened out and come to terms with the fact of how they were born and carry on regardless of what the relative pressure forces them to believe. And you can unplug their machines, you know, when they're kids. You don't have to pay for their phones. You don't have to turn a blind eye to their rude bits. You know, when they're doing their sexy ass posing on the Instagrams. Or looking like grown-ups. Or twerking practice in the bedroom and girly nights, sleepovers. What they're practicing to do. Chancellor of Queen's University Belfast is what the retiring pirate, the Chancellor, Hillary Clinton, has been awarded. I find that shaming. And she got an honorary doctorate for services to children. However that came about, I don't know. I don't know how Hillary Clinton got an honorary doctorate for her services throughout the world to children. So it made me think that, you know, because she's been tolerated for so long, that she was obviously working for the Crown. I mean, the programme that Bill Clinton went through as a Rhodes Scholar in Oxford absolved him of an awful lot of naughty stuff, right? Obviously, he had a certain degree of influence, Prince Andrew and the Epstein Island and stuff. Things went on. You know, they'd given up having special gilt-edged invitations to people like the Rothschild party in Oxford. You know, the one that killed Olivia Channon, the minister's daughter. They gave up that. Now they pick on working people to abuse. They can't do it to minister's daughter on, you know, after they've qualified in university, and they go, oh, looky, I've got a posh invitation, everybody will be there. Huh? A complete debauch. Cocaine and alcohol. Help yourself. And if you didn't help yourself, you had it poured down your neck. I had a reportage from 2 working class sticky bow types who didn't know what they were up for. They came out disgusted early. No, can't say anything, see. I can remember. You know, my dad was in the Duke of Wellington's. Got a picture of a little elephant on my blog. Lest we forget. That's the left side. There should be a right side as well, but sad to say, that's not my dad's original one. Don't call me Hindustan. The standard in Britain has fallen. There's too few that can remember to pick it up, what the standard was meant to be. A lot of the standard of European culture is based on what has been learned in Britain. But Britain's had to say it forgets very quickly because it's an island. And a lot of intelligence in the strange vortex that is an island world spins some of the folk into the centre, and some of it casts out by centrifugal force, you might say, if it returns that humanity that leaves the country, if it returns, it would return prosperous. Or it would stay away. Nobody wants to come back to Britain as a loser, do they? A last resort, going back to Britain. Well, I ain't going to do that. I've been abused for too long. By family, by state, institutions of the Crown, professional people, hospitals, police, doctors, lawyers, bad advice all round, social services. The education system, the care system for children, yeah, child poverty. I'm still suffering from the malnutrition I suffered from before. When I was a child, I'm still suffering as a result of that. Oh, I didn't like to interfere either because, you know, it was a domestic in any way. We don't like getting involved in darkies problems, you know. That's the sort of thing they would say. They still don't. They don't like to talk about it and all the rest of it. I can talk about anything to anyone. Anyone. My former wife, my first marriage anyway. Don't know if she calls herself a wife, but Canadian. Maladjusted. What does that mean? Maladjusted. Adjusted to living undercover for the rest of her life. In a centrally heated, triple glazed shopping mall. Maladjusted. The outside world is so big that she has agoraphobia when confronted with the great outdoors, so she has to be close to a car and always near the road. Not exactly a pioneer, just an urban relic from the old days of servitude in Britain. And she spoke about mixed marriages. Imagine this. She was speaking about Catholic and Protestant. But she soon adjusted, I think, and tried to kid me that somewhere along the line they had intermarried or mixed with Native Americans. I'm sure they were really grateful for that. I don't believe them. It was just the liberal way of trying to insist that they weren't really Nazis or really racially prejudiced. Liberals are like that. They don't know how to be honest. As a result, a lot of very bad marriages occurred because they pretended to love, but they just wanted to control. That made life really difficult for her, and it made it almost impossible for me. So she robbed me of my life's work, and I was cast out by the threesome ring. I insisted on no lying, no cheating, and no stealing, and no manipulative kind of Machiavellian games. I didn't say that, but I mean, that's what I meant. I translated it well enough for kids. And that's the reason I was accused of being an abuser, because I was a morally righteous person. when I tried to get my son to talk to his mother about it. He says, what's with all this morality all of a sudden? If you're going to sound like your father, I'm going to disinherit you, she said. I mean, and he's shut the door. He's gone along with it. But be warned, you know, be warned. Menfolk who relate to the daughter, my daughter, and to womenfolk who relate to Toby. And if you want to know why they should be concerned, you'd have to state your interest why you would want to know, but I will be certainly glad to inform you. The one thing that has occurred that it needs to be addressed is the mother, a deep, deep narcissistic personality who just had extreme control. I had to leave. I would have killed her. I never struck her that. I never harmed her. I accommodated her madness. I wasn't always happy about it, and I didn't sound it. I always sound how I feel. She battered my head with a lump hammer to wake me up. I was unconscious at the time. If you called me crazy, you'd be fucking livid if it had happened to you. Never mind crazy. Crazy's not a medical condition. It's just a term of abuse. The mother brought the kids up to hate me. Toby had a plan to subvert me and sabotage me. Maybe when in his adult life, I don't know, but certainly it was part of the big plan to humour me. He admitted that. I was working 16 hours a day for 10 years with no breaks. And I looked and there was no money. There were just massive debts and no account for what she'd done with it. Now, this is just a microcosm. She cultivated my daughter to express hatred, to service like a flying monkey or a useful idiot, to serve the narcissistic executive of extremely filthy. She accused me of extremely pornographic child abuse, claiming that she was the victim of her father doing the most disgusting things. And it isn't true. And she hasn't come clean. She hasn't come clean. Now, I don't know how her relationships with other men have gone, but I would say that there'll be a few that have noticed, and there's a few that need be warned. Because if she could do that to a family member, in denial and shutting out anybody can pick on that subject, she'll just shut it out. But it's true. Like maladjusted Canadians. Trudeau. Well, post a lot of narcissist related things, hopefully they'll find out about themselves. There's more abuse can cover a multitude of sins, most of which are never spoken of. Such is the difficulty to articulate the words without getting tangled up in the images that they conjure in the mind. Images that have no true place in a healthy mind. So much is done, complex, systematic abuse. That's almost impossible to relate in words without having the whole occasion thrown up into your mind, or impose the idea on somebody else's mind and they shrink away from it. Because it's horrible. It's really horrible. You wouldn't want to do it, and you wouldn't want to have it done to you. And when people falsely accuse, they're doing the worst of it for the fun of watching others suffer. A sadistic, perverted practice is that. Perverted. I hope Emma's getting some of this. Because she's as yet not learned how to write in a civil manner. And so if half a mind is full of hate and hypercriticism, believe it, Emma, I never hated you, ever. I wanted you to be worth knowing and loving. For every righteous deed you do, for every person you ever stood up for, and for being honourable to your father's code of practice. And you're not. Doesn't say you have to be rich. When you were a child, I didn't want to see a pretending child, someone trying to be someone else. I wanted to see my daughter. I didn't want to see the makeup of somebody who were trying to act like, you know. I wanted to see the charming talents that you were developing, developed to their fullest. Nobody's knocking you for having stage fright when you were going to do the dancing. Nobody's knocking you. Not everybody's a dancer. If you, for all this time, given the silence, has been since you were a child, you can ask your mother if you can have permission to talk to me if you like, if that's the way you lot work. I don't know. But she'll probably tell you that you'll be disinherited if you do. And you'll say, oh, I'd rather have the money than put it right. Well, that horrible letter that I got from your mother, given that your brother told me the story shortly after you told it to him, and then I got a letter from your mother as a way of a birthday greeting. arranged to be written by her flying monkey, because I was just preparing to take her to court for misrepresentation and fraud in a property settlement. And I didn't want to have to deal with both things at once, so I gave up both. And I let you lot win by cheating. Because the other issue of you making fraudulent claims that I had sexually abused you at bath times when you were a child needs to be addressed. Lying, cheating and stealing might be all right. Oh, nobody notices, nobody's found out. Everybody does it, you know, scamming, fiddling. Don't they? I don't know if you can hear all this. Flute on now. Hillary Clinton has been made the Chancellor of Queen's University. You'd think they'd found someone, they could have found someone in Britain. You'd think they could have found someone actually from Northern Ireland that was worthy. No. Some American money launderer who'd been working for Crown Institution is what they've got. And the honorary doctorate for child abuse is what they've got in the Blighted Isle. I've got a whole catalogue of melody lines, nothing fancy. Some of them are, most aren't. And I want to send them to schools and perhaps get used in the music appreciation and the music lessons sometime. Because we've got to give up the idea of sexy ass celebrity culture taking over music, because it's got nothing to do with twerking to the music or enhancing a crap singer with an electronic buzzer. You know, it's about as close to reproduction as a dildo. It's got to be seen for what it really is, human. It mustn't go beyond a humane frequency. We've got to stay in the matrix, our own, where we belong. Not to be pushed into the abuser's corner. Attract our children into the party and indoctrinate them with our bad habits as adults. No, thank you. I was told by the psychiatric services that because I didn't agree with the early age sexualizing of children through celebrity media, music industry, etc. You only have to think about Jimmy Savile and top of the pops to know what I'm talking about. They recorded what I was saying as evidence that I was anti-establishment in St. David's Hospital. That's the kind of people that get regular jobs in Britain. They told me that I was diluted. They gave me far more of the chemical kosh because I'm tall than is good for my Eurasian metabolism. Try and not show too much of what it does to me, because it makes me look like some knackered junkie, which I'm not. The damage that's been done to me was done by institutions of the state. And I wish I could have representation in a civil case against them. But because it's the state, there are no brave, heroic lawyers. None. That would risk being cancelled these days. Professionally, by the gravy train. I tried to get, what, Smith, Llewellyn and Jones. Turns out they're on the review committee permanently, the ones who get out of court settlements, say nothing, take a few bob, and fuck off. And if you say something, we'll take the money off you and we'll bust you. Right? Right. Well, that's what they do. And I said, no thanks. I want my stuff publicising so that it can be improved upon. And nobody wanted to take that on. That's the brave British. Sons of bitches! Collateral damage isn't something that's acceptable by the NHS as a normal part of medicine. It's not. It says in the guidelines, if so-and-so, then do not. And nobody even fucking reads it. Asians, Eurasians, smokers, permanent damage. Never give medicine to people if it looks like, or if you suspect it, of being irreversibly damaging. Even if you suspect it, given that they're all educated people, and an educated guess is often better than just being reckless. Just like contracts, if you suspect that the other person may be suffering from a mental illness, or you can prove that you were suffering from a mental illness, your contract is voidable. They should tell you that at school. And let's not pretend to have mental illness, because they'll put it down as really being true, that you really have it, like the conscripts in France, that they dodged the draft and they went away, and then they came back and they said that the reason why they couldn't join, because they were going to be banned from France forever, the reason they couldn't join was because they were mentally ill. Now every single thing that they do that is any good is discredited, because they have got a psychiatric history, and nobody wants to label themselves with the stigma of somebody else's until they're as famous at least as Van Gogh. Grumbling, aren't I? I'm always grumbling. Remember last time, you know, I mean, that's what I've got. I've got a limited life, I don't know how long. There's tons of things that I wished I could have helped with. It's silenced too many times. I've had cordons put around me. I've been banned from using ferries going across to Ireland where I used to live. I was just visiting my family. I've been unlawfully detained. I've been put in mental hospitals for speaking up. Health and safety at work on a non-union oil platform, how about that? They put me in Aberdeen Hospital on heavy drugs. When the consultant came back off holiday, they needed him to sign me out. He said, you should never have been here. I said, well, I've never done anything so evil to anybody. What's speaking against health and safety, for health and safety issues on a non-union, people will risk dying on an oil platform. In the North Sea, Viking Piper, John Brown Construction, Iron and Roustabouts, I was one. They gassed me on purpose to teach me a lesson, to shut me up. When I got really pissed off, they helicoptered me out and put me in a mental hospital. I hadn't harmed anyone. You know, we're having to work in the dark, pushing all the rubbish off the top of the platform into the sea. Well, the law says, the maritime law says that the sea shall not be used as a dump. You look at every ferry that you have ever crossed the channel with, and you'll see signs all over outside that dumping at sea is wrong. It's the law, maritime law. So we had to do it with the lights off. The whole steel fabricator's workshop, like a blacksmith's lifetime's work of collecting stuff for any man. And they were all near tears throwing stuff that they wished they'd had at home in the sea. Many metric tons of shot blasting sand in the sea. All comes out of your petrol money, doesn't it? That affects everybody else. I've never driven a car. I learned. I don't really want to drive a car. I think public transport would be a good idea if anybody gave a damn. Then they could have all electric. I tried that once before and it worked. They could use their cars to go on holiday abroad if they want. But you know, the idea of taxing the mileage and all the rest of it that they've got, that they had in Britain recently, all those nasty ideas that the Brits don't like, when you go abroad and they start applying them to you, even if you don't use them at home, you'll be glad to get home. You would. How many people have been to Cleethorpes? Cleethorpes, Scarborough, Whitby, Bridlington. Start with Blackpool. very. I'm unhappy. Hillary Clinton. The Brits have been, well, the crown institutions, the original investors, let's say, in the infrastructure of America. They virtually are being paid since before before the War of Independence, and royalties were being paid, contractually obliged to be paid. You know, law is law. I don't know what happened after the War of Independence, if they kept on paying their dues. But the Morganisation organised crime, Clive of India, Harry Morgan, the Clintons, Obama, Bush, Blair, Boris, Biden, they're all one. And they unite in their strength with the princes of Saudi, with the royal families of Europe, and they think they have entitlements throughout the world over nations, even though they don't live there. Why? Because they speak English. They've already sown their viral seed in the hearts and minds and destroyed cultures, destroyed the continuity. Gunboat diplomacy, thing of the past. It's not going to earn any friends anywhere, neither at home nor abroad, the way things are going. The sea change that the royal realm, the Blighted Isle, is going through at the moment is disgusting. I was a strandline marginal for a long time, and now I'm completely out of it. Thank God for vibration 13. Beyond your limited perception to know how to move from the British malaise to a better way of living. Something sustainable. You got food queues. You were criticising not that very long ago about food queues, bread queues and all the rest of it. In the Eastern Bloc, time of the Soviet Union. Used to criticise the fact that some dissidents who were outspoken or may have written anti-governmental literature, criticised the fact that they were abused with psychiatric drugs and imprisoned. You criticised that. So are we not meant to criticise the home team for doing that for the whole time that that was done elsewhere? What made the Brits doing it so bloody right? It's the same perverted, sadistic control. Somebody enables that. It is those who enable it that interpret the law, or allow the law to be interpreted wrongly. And there doesn't seem to be a will to make it right, to make it correct, to make it a higher ethical standard than the thing that we're criticizing. I'm upset. You can understand me, I think. I don't believe that I'm a lost cause, but I'm having to fix myself. You know, I see people with PayPal, and before you even look at this, press the like button and the subscribe button and sends me, and here's my PayPal details, and you know, and here's me all my other, you can pay them as well, and you look and see what it is that they want us to support. It's bollocks. What, for them to sit on their asses and just do that? And play at being TV presenters. If you don't, you won't see it anywhere else but here. You know, subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Fuck off. Boring stuff. Boring. I want someone to explain to me why Clinton's being treated so well, given the massive reportage that is none too pleasant over what they call the alternative media. I'm not really sure that it is any alternative. No. It's not an alternative media. Don't bullshit yourself. Does exactly, it's part of the plan, what it's meant to do. It's meant to let you think you've got an alternative, which if you bang your head against the wall for long enough, you'll get what you want. Well, fucking bang away, I say. See where that gets you. You haven't established due process that makes it right, that what you are doing is going to get any progress. What retrospective protest against something that's already happened? It's hardly going to make it not happen. You know, a bunch of protesters. What toilets do they use? What food do they eat? You know, I met people that were black blockish types and Antifa types. Easy to cope and deal with on a one-to-one basis. They don't like me, I'm hypercritical. Somebody has to be. It's like if everybody was that way, you wouldn't have to make it sound so loud by one person doing all the shouting. If we all understood what civilized practice meant, it's not laissez-faire of bad things happening. We all work towards a better future, you know, all of us work towards it. I live to serve. I know that sounds too noble, doesn't it? Live to serve. There's many that serve to live, and they think that if they don't get a job that they'll die. I can assure you that's not the truth. All right? And I'm not advocating everybody going on the social security. One, I'm advocating they wake up to their own intelligence and stop waiting for handouts and stop waiting for government to give them directives, because you won't get any worthwhile having them. I would like someone to explain to me the reasoning behind the judgment that gave Clinton an honorary doctorate and the Chancellorship of Queen's University, because it puts Britain to further shame. When I was born, my lot explained to me after when I was young, 7, 8 years old, the Empire days were over. Empire days are over. Finished. They were fooled. The gridiron flag of the St. George Cross and the red and white stripes was transferred to having the Union flag on the red and white stripes. It went over to America. And it seems to have adopted European stars. So we know who they are. The gridiron and the blue stars, the stars against the blue background, together become eventually the States of America. But nothing has really improved much as regards the ethical standard. They're just able to exploit more people now. They can do it worldwide. They've got their foot in the door. They got their familiar trade names, like people brush their teeth with Colgate. I don't know. Has anybody ever heard of a rumour concerning dentists? A rumour, a story concerning the ring of confidence. Dentists used to use cocaine. When they did tooth extractions and fillings and whatnot. And the richer clients could insist on cocaine. When Novocaine came out, the richer clients insisted on cocaine. When non-mercurial fillings were invented, the richer clients insisted, and they got what they wanted. The mercurial fillings, they'd overbought the mercury and silver fillings, the amalgam. They ended up with 50% when they said that it was poisonous, 50% in stock of what they had bought up to that time. And they've been trying to get rid of it ever since. Well, of course, with the ring of confidence that encouraged people to use toothpaste. Well, you know, you've got to loan the easy money somehow. Put it into toothpaste. with the ring of confidence. No other toothpaste name would have done in the old days, to the extent that there's whole nations that refer to the word toothpaste as Colgate. Now, the rumour is, how did they get rid of the excess cocaine? Put a little bit in the toothpaste, they reckoned. I asked the man who made up facts, and that's what he told me. Is that it might be a rumour, but it sounds fairly true though. So it's not saying yes or no, but it keeps coming round. There's no proof anywhere at all, probably. But interesting idea. To cure dental caries with cocaine addiction. You wonder how, during Bill Clinton's time, many metric tons of cocaine was smuggled into America. When you see pictures of people snorting, it's just a tiny line. It would take an awful lot of those to have many metric tons. I was wondering, besides people's noses, what commercial products they might put a little bit of that in to make it seem more attractive. And to give you that, you know, that zing, you know, that buzz, you know, that ring of confidence. You have confidence because you brush your teeth. Okay. If you're not confident because you don't brush your teeth, you'd know why you didn't have confidence. Stinking mouth. Well, brushing your teeth with anything is probably okay. It was the ring of confidence that made me wonder. And when they advertised it, bing, you know, what goes bing like that once you've consumed it? Can't hear you. All right, work it out. Cone circles. I haven't seen one true reportage of what might be the true cause of cone circles. I've seen a few clues. I know you can make them in certain circumstances manually. No, they wouldn't dare put my mad ideas out. I'll tell you one day. I got it off the man who made up facts. If you make up facts, somebody's got to make them up. No, a carpenter. If I made a chair, I'd be making a fact, wouldn't I? It wouldn't be just a piece of wood anymore. It'd be a chair. It'd have a function. It'd serve. Oh, facts tend to serve. Self-evidently. I could do with a few bob, I must admit. And that's my last resort, playing music on the street after all this isolation now. And I got really damaged, you know, so I can't work as hard as I used to. I overworked before, burnt out. So I've got my music, and once I get a better workshop facility, I'm explaining to the world, once I get a better workshop facility, I'll be able to make a few things that would retail well, you know, nothing too serious. Nothing big, stuff that you can take home from the market. A few more toys maybe. I don't really want to make boomerangs again, but I could. But there's a lot I could do. I've got my garden here, and cooking, and just enjoying the look of things growing, really. I've got my music now. The music, even though I've got arthritis in my hands, is more noticeable when I play a thicker flute. I'm doing all my practicing on a thick flute, which is kind of painful in joints. Get shooting pains through my fingers. We're getting some new bamboo flutes, and hopefully some of them are going to be smaller. I think they will. And I'm going to try and raise money. I don't know how easy that's going to be, but I'll have to coordinate an internet presence, video presence from occasion, outdoor world, garden, etc. Musical background, or me in performance, whatever, produce. CDs, or whatever the equivalent, I don't know what people do to get the folk to pay money for music. And I see that YouTube has got 80 million recordings. Doesn't fill me with confidence that I'm going to be anything but an obscure historic styling that's been kicked into touch. I've been kicked in now. The music, I say it's my music, I just make it up. There's the thing. We mix up the tunes, we're making up facts, aren't we? Raw materials, notes. What happens if there's only one note? And it goes like that. That's what I've got. So I break it up myself. I don't wait for some engineer to come and break it up for me. I try and join the notes up. And I've just been listening to a raga. A woman's humming, singing. She might as well be a tutor for. This is how Indian music works. We were deprived of it as youth. They thought that old darkies sang Negro spiritual songs. That's a laugh. My dad did a good imitation. He had a great voice, bass baritone. And I could do an imitation of my dad doing a great imitation. I could. But I gave up singing. I'd rather be instrumental. The aging couple over there. The man's a miracle. Never stops moving. That might be considered old. I'm only near 70. He's well older than me. Climbing up the tree, bombing around this tractor and pushing and pulling and doing everything. This wheelbarrow full of stuff. And grow the veggies. Admirable. See some fairly heroic people around here. Old, but they're determined to keep going at home. Not in some death trap of a residential home surrounded by staff that don't give two monkeys about you living and dying. My lovely madame worked in Wales in residential care home. She was disgusted at the way they treated people, virtually robbing them till their money runs out, short-changing them and giving them bad food, and getting a huge house built on the profit from the work, so-called work. Medication for people who complain too much. And no real activity for those who've got nothing end of their life and they're just so cabbaged, staring at the telly. I guess for some, dying was a relief. And for all those whose families didn't really care and put them in the care homes and hadn't accommodated that happening in their family, like it's naturally a fact that people get old and that mums and dads, after they put nappies on you and washed your arse, might need someone to do theirs when they're really, really old. As much as you were loved, how much is returned? You've been pulling the tits off your families, the elders, allowing them to be abused by proxy. Oh, so much for your disgust at the perverted practices that you read about and the grooming. You've already been groomed to ignore your elders. You're already programmed to abuse those old people by stuffing them into a place that doesn't care about them. I don't care about the constraints you're under. If you've had an education, you can work out a way that all your family stay together and have no reason to stop loving each other. Love isn't sex, you know. Most sexual acts in this world in the 21st century are not born of love. They have no place in the expression of love. Maladjusted condom fillers. Hormone poisonous. Yeah, I was brought up in the end of the 60s. 15 and 16-year-old girls were getting the pill. My first girlfriend's mother, a lady in waiting, she told me, used to refer to her daughter as the hot-bottomed little French girl. gave a load of very strong hormone contraceptives. Whereas in a former life should have been a debutante. Looking for a respectable, eligible, preferably rich husband, or somebody with a high-flying career. Like an officer from the School of Navigation or something, I don't know. Able to perform gentlemanly conduct. Even if it's only an act in public. So much for love. I learnt something there. I was considered unsuitable. I was just considered a practice model. The mother told me I ought to be an actor. I said I'd rather have a life of my own, thanks, rather than someone else writing me script. I wouldn't recommend that way of living. There's that certificate in it. 1 hour 23 minutes, eh? Bloody hell. I'll give you a pixie rock and roll and I'll shut it off. It's the 3rd time I tried to rant and I still haven't done it right. I'd rather talk in public to real people. Forget